Okay, welcome back, everybody. I know it has been a while since I posted last. This project just took so long to do. I just had so many problems, I guess, with it. Took too many different paths, I guess. One thing led to another, and eventually I got to where I needed to be. But as with all things, it started with this sort of piece of foam and an idea. I actually started on this project about a week before I posted the Hogwarts upgrade video. So if that gives you any idea how long it's been. And before anybody comments, I know I did everything except for the radio tower and the tree. I wanted to do it, but it got too far into this whole process. So I just had to actually call it done. As I say, this is all kind of the basic stuff that I do, and how you get started with the whole thing. This is regular foam board, both sides with the paper still intact. So as I say, this is and for the green spots, I just kind of cut out the paper and ripped those apart and kind of left them messy and then painted them green. This is just the regular one-ply chipboard that I use all the time, and then you'll see like all the little pieces I cut out for the windows, for the tops, and then all the pieces for the straight, because every single window on this project had framing. And when I first started this, I was like, oh, this is going to be really cool. I can do this, and I'll get it done quickly. Quickly, yeah. And it just didn't dawn on me that I had to do all the frames and all the little pieces in between. It was kind of ridiculous. But again, just in case, you're not really remembering or even play this game where this is coming from, this is that mobile game, State of Survival, zombie game that just recently added Daryl from The Walking Dead. I've been playing it for a while now. I guess I should probably full disclosure and say nobody's paying me for this video. There's no endorsement in this video at all. I just liked the game, was playing the game, and thought that the headquarters would be kind of cool to build. And again, thought the headquarters would be actually kind of quick to build. So I decided a different concept here. I wanted to put a base down based on a bunch of measurements, all the lines in the foam. And so I would piece it all together with this idea that I was going to illuminate it from the inside, which is why there's all those cutouts in the wall. I thought this might be easier, because I know a lot of times when I'm working with foam, especially the stuff that's been painted, and it's inevitable that something bends and curls or something on me. No matter what I do, it always curls. I really kind of hate the stuff. I don't know why I keep using it. But so I thought that this would help compensate by keeping it kind of in place, at least as much as I possibly could. Inevitably, even though I did all these steps, it still curled. I don't know what to do. As I say, I'm pretty much done with foam board. I'll use it when I have to, but oh man, I'm just getting kind of tired of it. So the reason that the different sides are different colors is that I just had a whole lot of beige paint. So I just figured I'd use that. I just needed to paint the other side to try to help stop the warping. And again, didn't help, because you can even kind of see a little bit of them warping. So this is, after I got all this stuff hot glued in, I realized I needed to put the diffusers over the windows. Yeah, obviously I'm not doing this in the right order half the time. So I am using the cooking parchment paper. It worked really, really well. The only difference is that I found out that I had a really hard time gluing it with a lot of different glues. The sticky glue will make it wrinkle, and kind of like the stick glue just doesn't work. Pops right back off if you put any kind of pressure on it. Inevitably, I ended up using a combination of sticky glue and hot glue. And then even, so I'd almost recommend maybe finding a different type of diffuser. if you're going to do something like this, because I thought parchment paper would be a really great idea, but not so much. So here I am actually realizing I should put this stuff on before I put it together. Makes things a lot easier. And see, here's that Elmer's stick glue. It stayed on. I'm not saying it pops back off. Some of the other stuff, because I was agitating it quite a bit, popped off. But I mean, for the most part, I guess it worked. So this is this little piece. The way I designed this was kind of, to Rubik's Cube together to help support itself. I kind of over-engineered it, probably completely unnecessary, but I did it anyway. As I say, all of these things that I'm doing are trying to compensate for some of the problems that I have when I do a bunch of different things, like foam board and different things like that together. From either the stuff not supporting itself well or kind of falling in a little bit, to just warping itself. Now, see, this back piece actually didn't warp so bad, so I was pretty happy about that one. The painting both sides does work for the most part, but look at that right wall there, and that was really bad. I didn't ever notice that until later. So these are the roofs. Sometimes I have a hard time with roofs. Not really sure why. They either come out the wrong size, or they just, the pitch is wrong. I don't know what it is, but this time I tried to over-engineer it to make sure I didn't screw it up this time. Maybe eventually I'll get used to the roofs. But even then, see how all the wall is off? I do every single step I take is to try to make sure that it doesn't do it. And inevitably, I spent all that extra time, and for the most part, it worked out. That was just little foam strips, by the way. Something I could cut pretty easy, and everything I did, I pre-painted before I started to put it together. Well, for the most part. So this is just a little combination of pieces of foam board to make the whole back here. I'm making up because you never see it in the game. So I'm just assuming that, based on the shape of the house or the building, and based on kind of the way the second floor had a porch, I figured the back porch would do, or the back side would. Something much smaller, though. Now this is the door, still making it out of chipboard. I know this is actually just going to go onto the actual foam board itself, so I'm not really worried about having a backing. So I'm just putting, and all the doors are really simple too. They're just, a little separator for the doors to swing, a handle, and some kickboards. Pretty much every single door is the same. Now I'm doing these with all the extra chipboard around it because I'm going to glue them from the inside, so you only see the door, and then the rest so I can hot glue around the edges and put it all together. I'll eventually, I think, have a video actually where I show that. Alright, so here are all the roofs done. Obviously, I can't cut a straight line in foam core to save my life when I'm trying to do an angle. And there's that. So here are the doors. There they are, being painted. You can kind of tell the areas, what it is. This is just, really cheap paint. So here it is. This is the back door, and I've already put the upstairs door in. And say this is just brown paint and some gunmetal gray paint or something like that. Later on, I'm going to figure out that I didn't paint the doorway red, so that's going to be I'm going to hate myself for that in a little while once I realize it. But I didn't realize it while at this stage. As I say, at one point I was rushing so much that it was I was defeating the purpose. I was literally making things and having to go back and redo them because they just weren't really that great. So I went back with the chipboard, did all kinds of edging there from the bottom and the separators and all that kind of stuff, and then I am building basically what is going to be the bottom of the rails. As I say, everything is one ply chipboard. And let's see. I put the roof ended up actually working out pretty well for the most part. I was I was pretty happy with the fact that it all lined up like it was supposed to. So these are the little pieces of foam core that I cut, even though that it was against my better judgment. I'm just hot gluing these down because see how it, they always squeeze together once you get a little bit of that pressure from the knife. And I probably should have just used some balsa or something, so that way it'd have been a little bit better. But again, I had foam core at my disposal, and I wanted to make sure that I can keep moving forward. Anything that I had already kind of, stepped back a couple times on it. And I have to admit that I was getting really frustrated, had a lot going on outside of modeling. And then I had this, and I was messing up, which I thought would have been a pretty simple project, and I almost quit 3 or 4 different times. Or I also just basically said, "Here it is. This is all I got. I'm moving on." But I just kept telling myself, "No, I have to finish this thing. I have to do it." I started it, and eventually, I did finish. Well, minus the radio tower and tree, I guess. So once all that's done, then all the railing goes the same way, the chipboard. This roof, I'm cutting strips out of chipboard, and I'm just kind of cutting little half slots in the thing to kind of, and hoping that when it gets painted, it'll kind of curl on the edges and make it a little bit more realistic. But I have to admit, I really don't like doing tiles in sheets like this or whatever. I prefer individual tiles, and unless it's like a modern home and everything is so absolutely uniform. But at the end of the day, it just, I don't know, it just doesn't, it looks okay, but for me, I just, there's something about sort of the hand. By doing my hand, you kind of mess some stuff up and stuff, and it makes it look more realistic. So this was my genius idea to build this little template thing here. I don't know what you want to call it, like a stamp, because I'm going to try to do some corrugated, like aluminum, like metal, corrugated sheets, metal sheets. They're going to go on the roof and whatnot. So I had this idea that I would just get these round sticks and sort of put them together and create like a little vise. It worked for the most part. But I have to say that, I don't know, after a while, I did the 2, and it worked. But, so those are just aluminum foil. I literally just folded I had some really thin aluminum foil, so I just kind of folded it over until it was thicker, and then just, bent them a little bit, and they actually, it worked. It probably wasn't the scale, but it worked. So, it was good enough. So this, there's this sort of, I don't know, water gasoline jug thing at the top of this thing. I don't know what it is. Probably water, I assume. But this little PVC end cap fit perfectly into that bottle. I thought that was actually pretty cool. I don't think that that's probably what the model looks like, in the game. I don't think it has that round edge on it, but it was pretty close to the size I think it needed. So I needed to get some texture on the outside of this thing. So I just had this genius idea that I would rub some glue on the outside and just put these little sticks. I don't know what they're really called. They're just little round sticks, little dowel rods. And then glue them a little at a time. And then eventually I would go back and trim them and whatever. But I found these at Target for like $2. And I needed something that would be some sort of like little silo that sits in the corner. And it was the perfect shape. I just had to cut it up, carve it a little bit. But there's like that little rubber head on it. And it worked out really well. I got a bunch of those things and I don't know what to do with them now, but it worked out. And as see, I cut a little piece in there. As I say, it was surprising how well this actually turned out. I was trying my best to just sort of make it. But everything I did, the round cap on it or whatever, just looked so horrible. So I found these and was like, hey, that works. I love the 3D effect that's happening from the glue stick right now. That's, it's for, I didn't realize it, but I almost hit the camera quite a few times. So, the things I painted metallic here, I think it's like gunmetal gray or gunmetal silver or something like that. Those are just chipboard, but for whatever particular reason, I thought it was a smart idea to use actual wooden sticks for the wood pieces. I guess because you can't really see texture on any of it. So for whatever reason, I should have just made them all out of chipboard and just saved the wood. But so this is just a wash that I made. Oddly enough, it's a really weak wash, but when you put it against all this stuff, it really is kind of strong. But when it dries, it's not as bad. But it's just black paint, really thin down black paint. So these are 1/16 inch plastic tubing, and then I'm using little, I think it's like 1/32 or 1/64 super thin plastic sheets there, or strips, whatever you want to call them. So this is the garage door is sort of halfway rolled up, and it's kind of pushed back and whatever. So I just kind of bent this thing with my fingers to kind of create like a little bit, and then I did a little crossbar for support, and then here's the rolling, whatever you want to call them, the little pieces, the individual sheets that would roll up. It's not as accurate to what kind of detail you can see, but it kind of worked. I'm using that same tubing to create the railing. This railing I did multiple times and messed up multiple times, to the point where I used string, I used copper, I used all kinds of different materials, and won't use this stuff again for the most part, but this worked out. I had to lay a sheet of that plastic down because once it was having a hard time gluing directly to the chipboard. I'm not really sure why, so I just did it that way. I didn't show you the rest of the stuff here because it's kind of, it was embarrassing how long it took. But the railing itself, I just sort of cut little 45-degree angles and put it together. I tried to bend it and kind of make one big railing, but apparently I'm not good enough to do that because every time I got halfway into it, I would snap the corners or whatever. So I know people say, and they do it all the time, about bending the plastic cold, just using your fingers to warm it up a little bit. I find that it doesn't hold its shape very well, and if you don't heat it up, it deforms, and then eventually, once it's there, if you move it at all again, it'll snap. I'm not sure if heating it up does that because I didn't have anything to heat it up with, but that's what I've been finding out. I'm sure if I do it more often, I'll get better, but right now, not so much. So as I was walking around trying to find what I was going to do for this sort of relief that's in the roof pitch, I found this new Daz clay. I'm not a big fan of Daz clay, but for the most part, I wanted something air dry, and I was like, why not? And this is something called stone. I guess once it eventually dries, it was supposed to look like stone. It doesn't. It just looks like gray clay. but it worked for the most part. I'm gonna skip most of this because I'm horrible at sculpting, and it doesn't look anything like the game. There's a couple swirls that might be similar, but needless to say, I really need to spend a little bit more time and up my sculpting game. But okay, come on, cut. Where is this? Okay, good. Now I'm finally realizing that when I thought I was almost done with the whole model, I still have so many little extras to add to the model. So this is the walkway that kind of stands around the outside. I'm not really sure how in the world anybody would actually stand on it, but so I just sort of make this base and I just glue all the pieces together, and once it's all finally dry, then I'm just gonna cut them down to fit. it was much easier than trying to get all this stuff and trim them and then glue it. I had to keep a margin for error. Even this was pretty bad, because these are actually not the round dowels. These are just flat matchsticks, and I get them at Walmart, and they are the crappiest things. None of them are the right size. They're all bent. They're just horrible matchsticks, but it actually works pretty well because it looks like it's haphazardly finding different pieces of wood. So if you're trying to do something straight, don't use these. But if you're trying to find something that looks a bit more like apocalyptic, these are the best pieces of wood, and they're not the same type of wood, so they're different colors. So I noticed in the game that there is a slight angle to the metal piece that sticks out, and because I'm always trying to get the detail right, I decided that I needed to snap that off and then cut a little angle on it and make it work, and it worked out. So these, I just sort of drilled little holes into the foam core, and then here's that 3D glue stick again. And I'm just gonna put some glue on the top of them, and then just kind of carefully sit it down. I'm gonna use this the ladder that I used at the top, and this ladder that I'm about to bring in here to make sure that I don't, I can glue this down. I tried and tried and tried to make one myself, the ladder. I could not. So I just bought some Plastistruct. They have their own ladders, and it's not the right scale, but there's a lot of things in this model that aren't the same scale, from the game, the picture. So, but it worked, I think. So I'm not arbitrarily putting these down. I spent quite a while trying to figure out where the layout was going to be. I think I ended up setting the house a little bit too far back, but these are the columns that are going to be the fence, and they're all different colors here and there. So this barn red was my best friend. I'm assuming all this, if you could zoom in enough in the game, I'm assuming all of this would actually be brick. So I had this sort of dilemma: should I make brick, or should I just do it flat surface because that's all you see? And inevitably I went flat surface. I kind of wish I went a little bit more realistic with it and actually made brick where you can see it, because obviously this is a bigger scale than the one in the game. But I think it was actually probably for the best that I went ahead and left it flat, because if not, it very well, this model would have cost me a lot more money to build, and it would have taken a lot longer to finish, and I probably would have stopped. Truth be told. So this thing has like a bunch of concrete barriers around it. So this is the first time I've ever created a barrier. Concrete barrier, and much less out of foam. So it's just coincidental that the top piece of this is gray. I just used whatever foam I have as a base when I'm painting something. So so this is 1 inch foam core, I think. So I cut these little cubes out, squares, rectangles, whatever, and then try to cut down a straight line. And because of the sawing action, I create these nice little cuts and rivets in the thing, so it actually kind of makes it look a little bit more like concrete, which was a happy accident. Nothing planned. But you can tell that clearly my straight cuts are not straight at all. So, but hey, what happens is that these things have been chipped or something like that. There's always an excuse. But I totally intended to do that for real. So this is just white paint and a paper towel, and the whole point is to make it look old. If I painted it straight, it would look brand new. So just a little dab here and there, and there's the paint. Boom. And then the red paint, which incidentally is probably a little too cardinal red, but But actually, once it finally got on there with the white paint, I still think it was a little too vivid, but it worked. So I just kind of very haphazardly put these on here. And incidentally, I think the game, I wasn't looking at a reference. This is why you should always look at a reference if you're doing something, copy of something, because I think there are 4 stripes on the things, and I think it's the white stripe and the red solid. But you know what? It works. So this is plastic square tubing, solid tubing. I needed something that was smaller than the foam core, but that could sit, with just enough space. And so I just sort of screwed down a little bit and try to drill out some of that excess pieces there, and then I just hot glued them in. And so I took like a needle file and just kind of jabbed where the spaces are going to be for these things. And at first I was going to try to measure these things off, which was just silly. So I just basically took those little round dowel rods, and see, I put that in way too short. But I just put them in there and then went back and trimmed them all to kind of level them out. Now this the black thing here I'm hot gluing down. It's they're actually coffee stirrers. The good part about a coffee stir is that it's kind of round on top, but then it flattens out on the bottom, which is a perfect surface to glue down to. Then still have that little round topper. So I had this idea to just hot glue it, right? So I'm just putting these little beads of hot glue on the tops as fast as I possibly can, which, watching this video apparently looks like it's as slow as I possibly can. Surely that first one has to be dried by now. These are just little bitty dots. And let's see. Yeah, I mean it glues. I burned myself probably 15-16 times doing this stuff, but so I'll try to stop saying a lot of the glue did end up drying before I got it on there. So I just took the tip of the glue gun and remelted the existing glue and kind of smudged it around a little bit to get it to work. Whoop, stop saying So this was the easiest and fastest way I could figure out how to do this. It was always sliding down on me. The wood is cut smooth, so it's kind of hard for stuff to stick to it. So I just got tacky glue and I just rubbed it on the backside of these pieces, and then I just left it sort of upright to let it dry. So in the game, these things are solid. They go across the whole thing from the brick dividers to the other brick divider, but I just couldn't get it to work. So I liked the idea. After I was done with it, I liked the makeshift. It looked like the wall was there when the building was built, but then because of the apocalypse and the zombies and stuff like that, they came back and added rebar and a bunch of other stuff to kind of make it fit. So that's the story that I came up with to make an excuse as to why I didn't want to connect it all together. But at the end of the day, I think it worked out pretty well. So there's a few pieces. Now, you probably can't tell now, but straight ahead in the back piece there was a whole other section that I was supposed to actually continue and fit on the wood, but I forgot about it. I didn't realize it until I was painting. And then I decided, because I had to put these little metal brackets up to kind of help fill in the gap, for where they were clearly trying to stop the big gaps from people coming in. So I just put a big old piece of, metal piece back there and kind of fill in the gap where I totally forgot to do. It worked, and you can't really see the back of the thing anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So I try to do at least the two sides accurately to the game, and then I'm very sparse with the other two sides because I want to make sure that I got the main two sides done and had enough for it. So I painted the grass green, just painted the surface. I painted it green, and now I'm going back with some glue because I'm going to do some of this fine grass, foam stuff, like fine turf. Probably didn't need to do this. You can barely see the grass once the building is attached, but it's grass, so, and at this scale it would be fine turf. So, it was only about 3 or 4 ounces that I used, probably not even that. So there are these little strips in front. I have no idea what the design of this is supposed to be. I'm thinking that, I think this game is Chinese, so I'm thinking that this is maybe part of Chinese architecture, the way the paint lines are divided in I don't know. I have no idea. I'm completely guessing at that part. But it's I don't know why they're there, but they're there. So I just used what is it called? I think it's called pavement, the color pavement. I used that, and then there are these little strips that go down that kind of divide. This is the thing I don't understand, is that it's kind of like the middle is the sidewalk, and then the rest of it is the area, but only a portion of it is actually this. I don't know. I don't get it. Okay, the flagpole is actually a paper straw. It's they're quite sturdy until you start using them, like to drink your soda with or something, and then they fall apart on you. But if you're not going to get them wet, they make great flagpoles. So I just kind of, and it literally cut into the foam, so I didn't even need to cut the foam around it or whatever. I just jabbed it into the foam and then glued it down, and it pretty much stayed perfect. Now I'm taking this last part of the wash, and I'm literally just gonna put it on everything. Probably 2 or 3 times. I think I use all the wash. I figure I keep saying so sorry. I don't know why I keep saying I know what I did. It's just taking me a second to recall it, I guess. So while I'm doing this, I'm thinking to myself, you probably should have painted this sort of dead grass before you actually put the concrete pylons on. But somewhere in the back of my head told me that, hey, you know what, this was on purpose because the dead grass is literally, overriding the concrete. But it's, yeah, I was lying to myself. I just didn't think about it in time. A lot of things I did in this thing sort of backwards. So this is just cardstock paper, and I'm just sort of painting what will eventually become the flag that has this little logo. So I'm also painting the back side of it because it's, the flag is the same color on both sides. And I'm putting it on kind of heavy, even though I have a really small detail brush. Here's the laziness again. I didn't want to get another brush dirty right now, so I just used the same one. Maybe this is why it took me so long to do the model. So now I'm going back and I'm adding it because I wanted to kind of help wrinkle the paper more. So once it's all dry, I go back. Well, not completely dry, but still a little moist. I go back and add all these wrinkles and stuff to it. And I have to admit it does a pretty good job making flags like that, or making anything that's going to be cloth. You can just make it out of cardstock paper, especially if you have like a linen, like a cotton linen paper, like a resume paper. It's expensive, but it makes a really good, and you don't have to put like stiffening glue on it or anything like that. It works pretty well. So now I'm just a line of glue, hot glue, and I'm just gonna stick it right in the middle of the glue, so that way, if I get my arm and hand out of the way there we go. It sticks quite perfectly. But seeing as how I like to do things completely backwards, I now paint the flagpole silver. I guess I can sit there and say that I needed to paint the glue so then that way you wouldn't see all the glue. But in reality, I wasn't thinking about it when I glued it down. So I thought I was completely done with this thing and I was going to move on until I realized I hadn't done the gate, the front gate. And if I didn't do the front gate, it wasn't going to look right. So I pieced together as much as I possibly could here of cutting these little things and wedging them together. I glued most of the stuff down with super glue, but I found that the super glue didn't really work bridging the gap between the center pieces here and the supports. So I ended up putting tacky glue down and building it up and then going back and reinforcing it with super glue. It's probably not the greatest thing. I could have probably cut a better piece of wood, but I'm like, hey, whatever. Waste not, want not. And like all things, this gets the same gunmetal gray. I think I ran out a whole bottle of that stuff. But I think it worked out pretty well. It almost is straight. It almost looks like a well-built gate. But hey, at least it fit. I measured like 4 or 5 times on the width of that gate to make sure I didn't. I would have been very upset with myself if I'd have made that, because it's happened before. Measure something and all of a sudden it's about 1/4 of an inch too big or too small, and or not even that, 1/16 of an inch, and then all of a sudden you're left trying to figure out how you're going to get it in place. So as I say, I did use glue on the edges, but just to kind of hold it so it wouldn't fall apart, and then I went back and I used hot glue to kind of secure it, because I figured it's on the inside of the fence. You're not gonna see the hot glue anyway, so it doesn't matter. I didn't go back and repaint it or anything like that. Yeah, I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and at this moment I'm trying to figure out, like, if I want to continue and try to figure out how to make the radio tower out of the materials that I have already been using. Which coffee stirs and round little dowel rods. I don't know if that would have been a great idea, but I was going to try until I just said I had to finish this and get it done, and so I can get that light and put in here. Oh, and I don't show this light really, really quickly. I just use an orange bulb, an LED bulb, and a normal light switch and throw it in there. Nothing special. And there we go. So you'll forgive the pictures here because, as I say, all this stuff was really, really rushed because I haven't made a video in quite a while. So hopefully you enjoyed this. I can say I enjoyed it, a little bit of it as I was building it, but hopefully you'll enjoy it. And I guess I will see you on the next video. Well, or you know what I mean.